Coming up on American Black Journal, the new CEO of the Children's Center is here to talk about the critical needs of children and families in Metro Detroit. Plus, we're going to examine the barriers to higher ed for students of color. And a local nonprofit is teaching Detroiters a really valuable skill: repairing electric vehicles. Don't go anywhere. American Black Journal starts right now.
From Delta faucets to Behr paint, Masco Corporation is proud to deliver products that enhance the way consumers all over the world experience and enjoy their living spaces. Masco, serving Michigan communities since 1929. Support also provided by the Cynthia and Edsel Ford Fund for Journalism at Detroit Public TV.
The DTE Foundation proudly supports 50 years of American Black Journal in covering African American history, culture, and politics. The DTE Foundation and American Black Journal partners in presenting African American perspectives about our communities and in our world.
Also brought to you by Nissan Foundation and viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome to American Black Journal. I'm your host, Stephen Henderson. Since 1929, the Children's Center has advocated for the health and well-being of children and families here in the Detroit area. The organization provides a variety of clinical services for children who struggle with behavioral, mental, educational, and developmental challenges. This summer, the center announced the appointment of a new CEO, Nicole Wells Stallworth. I spoke with her about the current needs of children in Detroit and her vision for that agency. So let's start with just the history and importance of the Children's Center, what it does and why it matters. But then let's talk about your interest in leading this institution and how you find yourself in this new role.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the time. I joined Children's Center as president and CEO early this summer, and I'm really excited about being able to take the helm of such an important and vital organization that provides such an important public health and general community health service to the community. Children's Center has been around since 1929, and we provide evidence-based therapy to children who are challenged by behavioral, emotional, educational, intellectual, and developmental health issues, or maybe have experienced trauma in their lives. We also support children in foster care by recruiting foster homes, licensing them, and also placing children in foster homes that we've trained, and then supporting those young people all the way through their time in foster care.
So I feel like one of the prime issues with our children, especially right now, has to do with their mental health and the gaps that exist in our attention to and our options to kind of treat mental health challenges that we have with children. I would imagine that's also a real focus of yours at the Children's Center.
Yeah, because we do provide the actual mental health therapy, that's one of the core services that we provide as an extension of a young person's actual physical health care. Mental health care is something that should be deemed vital and important, regardless of if you are currently having an issue or not. We know that the arc of life will always present challenges, and everyone deserves to be able to have access to the tools that they need to be able to be supported. One of the things that we are looking at doing so much in our advocacy is ensuring that we are championing total well-being for children. And those are children who are, again, in the foster care system and who need evidence-based clinical care to be able to ensure that they are provided the tools to succeed in their lives, but also to navigate any of these challenges that they may encounter. Right now, there is a shortage of healthcare professionals that are able to provide clinical mental health care. It's
Mhm.
not the same as a pediatrician. It's not the same expertise. And so at Children's Center, we are championing initiatives that will allow for increased visibility around this important issue, but also encouraging lawmakers and policymakers and leaders to create initiatives that champion recruitment of clinical therapists, social workers, the kinds of professionals that can serve in these roles to support children as they are in their developmental stages, but also with all of the things that they need.
Yeah, yeah. I would also imagine that the challenges that our children face, and I know this firsthand, of course, because I have two children, they're different now because of the pandemic, and it's always surprising to me how many different ways it presents itself differently. Just when I think, well, things are kind of back to normal now, and they're going to be like they were before, something else happens or kind of pops up that reminds me that they've had this major disruption in their lives at a pretty critical time in their childhood. Talk about how the Children's Center is challenged by the after pandemic dynamics.
Yeah, I think that the one thing that I would urge and encourage everyone to keep in mind is that the pandemic was extremely traumatic for everyone. About 60% of children were impacted in ways that many of us who were not a child during the pandemic could not imagine. And that means that about 60% of children in Detroit specifically either lost a primary caregiver or their primary caregiver lost their income or their job during the pandemic. Beyond that, they have endured the kinds of disruptions in their day-to-day that they now have had to readjust to going back to school, which many of them are excited about, but also having to adjust themselves around the challenges of a different schedule and et cetera. Trauma, as well as just any kind of a mental health challenge, presents itself differently in every child. As mental health professionals, as educators, as parents, it's important for us to know and recognize that, but also to ensure and advocate for them to be able to have access to someone who can help them work through some of those challenges without creating stigma, without creating any sense of, oh, this is not normal. Again, everyone is going to deal with some sort of a mental health concern, whether it be depression or anxiety or a variety of forms of depression throughout their years. Grief is another form of a mental health concern that many of us will have to contend with over time. And as we think about children, we have to make sure that they are provided with the tools and resources that they would need to be able to be successful, especially in this post-pandemic era. Last point that I'll make on this. We are now seeing more and more children who are self-identifying that they are dealing with anxiety or depression. Mm-hmm. They are now more aware that something is not quite right and I need some help. I think it's incumbent upon all of us to ensure that we are hearing their voices, but that we're also trying to provide those resources. The Children's Center actually serves as a resource in the community for those kinds of needs for children.
Yeah. We've only got a couple of minutes left, but I want to talk a little about the preventative side of some of this and the work that you may be focused on there. Of course, the best way to deal with some of these things is to prevent them from becoming problems in the first place. That's not always easy, but talk about what the Children's Center is thinking about there.
Yeah, we work with K through 12 institutions primarily, and we offer programs in our Family Success Center on site at the Children's Center in Midtown to create access to a variety of preventative services for families. Some of the things that we may not think about that could be a precursor to crisis is housing instability, food insecurity. These are the kinds of things that create uncertainty and then could potentially lead to a crisis. And so at Children's Center, we have what's called our Tau Beta Family Success Center, where we provide a range of family support services to the entire family to ensure that the child is fully supported in their lives so that we can prevent crisis. The other ways in which we do that is through our partnerships with K through 12 institutions. Right now, we have a partnership with Detroit Public Schools where we have a therapist that is on site within the school there to support anyone prior to their having what we would call a crisis.
Yeah.
And in those programs, we provide young people the tools to be able to deal with maybe they're not having such a great day. How do you navigate the rest of the day to be able to get through your day and then start fresh the next day? These are things that children, incredibly resilient as they are, will benefit from being able to have access to all of these programs in order to prevent a crisis from occurring.
The future of work in Michigan is the focus of an ongoing initiative here at Detroit Public Television. Recently, I took part in a One Detroit town hall at Henry Ford College that examined the role of higher education in growing Michigan's population and keeping Gen Z talent right here in the state. I led a panel discussion on the impact of diversity, equity, and inclusion on educational and economic success. Here's a portion of that conversation.
You were the first person in your family to go to college, a really important milestone, and now you're working on access for other folks. So I want to start with you talking about how we break down some of these barriers that we have for people of color in particular to get into higher ed, but also the focus that you guys have, which is on the families and the students. And not so much on the institutions and what they can do, and how important that distinction is.
Yes. So I am new in the TICAS space, so the Institute for College Access and Success, short TICAS. But I come from the college access and success space, and I spent a considerable amount of time in financial aid as well. So from that experience and also being a first-generation student from Detroit and hearing the narratives that exist in our community, the aspect of transparency in education and exposure becomes extremely important. A lot of times these decisions are being made based off of hypothetical situations that someone else has experienced without the actual engagement and understanding of how these systems work and how to navigate these systems. And a lot of times us as professionals, we look at it as we want to simplify things as much as possible. We want to take the barriers off their plate, but the reality is life is life. And we still have to navigate these systems. So teaching us what is coming before us, what these things mean. So like the conversation on specifically like the labor market, for example, it is rare that that is a discussion in the Black community about what it means to get a college degree and how it will position you as it relates to stability. What we think, especially in a blue collar state, is you work. You work hard. You put your head down and you work hard. That is what we are taught in our homes. And for me, I looked around when I made a determination that I was going to college in the 3rd grade, because I looked around my community and I was like, what is the one thing that no one has done here? And that was go to school.
At Detroit Future City, you guys are trying to put this in the context of the greater kind of barriers and challenges that we face in communities of color, and particularly in the city of Detroit, to economic success. Talk about how that higher ed access and focus relates to the other gaps that we see in our communities.
I really think about this in several layers. So, I really want to ensure that our institutions are really grounded in diversity and in equity and inclusion and justice. Are we trauma-informed, and are we human-centered in the way that we are designing our programs and our services? Meaning, are we actually listening to the individuals that we're seeking to serve and incorporating their voice before we design, as we implement, and as we evaluate? So that's one layer. Another thing that is really important is that these institutions are working across systems to solve quality of life issues that people are experiencing. They're not just coming to you as students. There are housing issues and transportation issues and childcare issues and all kinds of things that they're experiencing at the environmental level, at the community level, and in society. We come, to your doors having experienced a whole host of things that somebody at your office may not have experienced before. So that it's really important to be working across systems as an institution to address those quality of life issues. And one other layer I'll just kind of speak to briefly is just the partnerships. How are these institutions partnering with organizations who may be employers and organizations who could be institutional partners? What does that partnership look like? And are you also requiring that those partnerships are grounded in DEI and trauma-informed care and also human-centered? Are we requiring the institutions that we send young people to for employment to be good corporate citizens? Or are we setting them up to be in something cyclical and creating more trauma in the process?
This is the context in which we're talking about growing talent, growing the population here in the state of Michigan. It's a pretty big hill that sits in front of us. But talk about how we disrupt the things that we just heard, I guess, from a state level and from the level of policymaking in order to get more people to want to stay here and then, of course, to come here as well.
So how do we disrupt, right? First of all, I think we can't disrupt unless you actually know what these barriers are, right? Really understanding. I know that within the council, we've created very high-level recommendations, but we also have to go to our actual population and see what are the issues facing Michiganders specifically, those who are housing insecure, the mental health issues that are going on, right, for students, the supports that are actually needed. We can say, yes, great, okay, now you've gotten to college and here's your path to a job, but what are all those supports that are needed within every single semester to help that student get through and get to that job? And the work that I do with our Employment Equity Learning and Action Collaborative, ELAC, is also we've been focusing on what do workplaces need to do to be able to help their worker stay in that job, retain that job, and advance in their job as well, right? So when we think of policy recommendations, we typically go high level, but I feel like we need to get into the minutia of it all in order to be really able to help Michiganders get through that trajectory and stay in Michigan.
Yeah.
And you can see more of the Future of Work Town Hall at onedetroitpbs.org. Finally, today, a Detroit nonprofit is helping Detroiters prepare for the jobs of the future. Students in the Black Bottom Group's EV Automotive Mobility Program receive hands-on training in the maintenance and repair of electric vehicles. One Detroit's Bill Kubota has the story.
Now, first of all, we have a reservoir over here with the green fluid. Does everybody remember what we talked about the green fluid?
Now it's time to really create a new workforce in terms of electrification.
Even though it is an EV car, it still has to have the coolant to operate your heated motor inside.
And we want to be part of everything, the whole future of mobility. But we want to make it applicable and accessible to the community.
Detroit's east side on Jefferson, the Island View neighborhood. An electric vehicle repair class. Pierre Pickens checking out a Volvo Polestar.
You know what I'm saying? Like a whole bunch of motor missing, like a whole bunch of power missing to me.
I see them driving, but I've never got under the hood of an electric vehicle.
They're coming, whether I like it or not, so might as well know something about them.
I love Hellcats, SRTs, Trackhawks of that nature, but I'm also fascinated with electric vehicles and hybrid vehicles.
This is a great opportunity here to get involved, especially in the city of Detroit.
In World News Report says that we're 38% behind in EV technical training. 10 years from now, we're going to be nearly 50 to 55% behind. If we don't get more trained technicians in the EV world, we are going to be so far behind, we're not going to be able to fix our own cars. This is a fully electric air conditioning system.
So this is the air conditioner right here?
That is the air conditioning
right
system there. These gentlemen want to achieve something in a higher pay grade and achieve something that a lot of other people are too scared to even try. EV can be very dangerous if you let it be. It doesn't have to be. The right safety protocols, which we study every course is number one importance. If you study and you practice EV safety, you don't have anything to worry about.
The 12-week class a Detroit nonprofit puts it on, the first exposure as to how these cars work and a chance to find a new career.
As a hobby, I do a lot of car audio electronics, like big speakers and subwoofers and things like that. And part of that community is switching over the regular gas-powered cars to new lithium batteries. When this class was brought up to me, I immediately jumped on it because I thought that as a hobby, it would be kind of cool to do as a profession in the future.
Now, electric tools, you'll be able to tell them because they have a special coating over them. Some of them even have the metal tips, but still the coating is insulated over the housing.
Some of these students are in recovery, some returning citizens.
It came about me being in a program to help me get back on the right track of my life and everything. And this opportunity came about, and I felt like it was a great career to get into.
These individuals are really trying to change their lives. So we want to give these individuals some alternatives. Because the EV space, the infrastructure space, you're talking about, these are the big boy. This is the big boy game.
A big boy game these EVs are, at least who owns them. Surveys say the vast majority of buyers are middle-aged white men making more than $100,000 a year. Here's a chance to take apart a Tesla, Polestar, and Chevy Volt hybrid. A big deal for this class.
Some of the dealerships have their own training sessions, but they're on-hands training while they're getting paid. These gentlemen are here volunteering their own time to learn this and understand it so that they can be better in the long run and getting a better job.
We have some relationships with some of the dealerships, and the dealerships are always looking for entry-level technicians. Now, they're not going to go on the dealership working on EVs, but they will be able to work themselves up. Also, they will be able to get into an apprenticeship program where they'll get paid to learn.
Not just under the hood, there's book learning and instruction on the EV infrastructure. Stuff like charging stations and how to safely plug in a car.
Level 2 plug-in for your house, plug in to your wall right here. And you also plug this part in to your car.
This is what we call the testing ground. If they can't get through this here, they're not prepared to go any further.
That's what the 3 wires are. It's 3-phase AC. So there's 3 phases that go into this, which makes the high voltage. That is the orange wires, they are the high voltage wires.
Because a lot of testing has to go into it.
Instructor William Widner also offers advice about problem solving and customer service.
Guesswork does not resolve a problem every time. And if you do guesswork all the time, sooner or later, people are going to get a bad taste in their mouth. They're not going to come to you. They're not going to want their vehicle fixed by you.
With the direction that this is going to open a lot of doors. Even if it's not working on the vehicles, working on the charging stations for the vehicles. So this right now, this is the ground floor.
With this knowledge, when I do graduate from here, I will be transferring to a dealership. And from a dealership, I'm just going to go to an apprenticeship program, 2-year program, and just keep working until I have my own EV shop.
Ray Smith got interested in EVs when he operated a shuttle service for Detroit seniors and those with special needs. He was running a self-driving electric vehicle and wondered, will there be Detroiters able to repair them?
Right here.
There are some EV repair classes at community colleges in the suburbs, but there's still tuition. This class is free.
You can walk here. You don't have to catch 4 buses. And then the buses start running, you're stuck somewhere in the suburbs. No, you come here where you got access. Also, we have a ride-sharing program. We offer rides, and we're going to have a fleet of EVs just for ride-sharing here as well.
I'm a combustion vehicle type of guy. I still am. So I kind of just stumbled across the course, and I decided to look into it further. I've been doing my own research on EVs just to know something about them, see if it's something I would consider. And I'm starting to get a lot curious with them. Like, just seeing it is an experience in itself.
Charles White, Detroiter, longtime car guy, works as a cleaning contractor.
The more I come to the class, the more interested I become in these EVs. Again, I'm a diehard combustion vehicle guy, so you're really taking me out of my element, but my curiosity is what got the cat clinging to the tree.
And there might be a moment where you realize this is it. Huh?
This is it, yeah. It's the way it's going. You know, the way the world is changing so rapidly. We may not have time to sit back and say, oh, you know, I got 5 or 6 years before I can tap into it. 5 or 6 years, it may be less than 30% of gas vehicles on the road. We don't know.
We are here in Detroit. We're the motor city still. But now we're going to the EV, and we got to be the EV city now. And I know that GM and Ford and Bill Ford, them guys, and Mary Bear, they really pushing. I mean, they serious about this. But we want to be serious with them.
It's like a jigsaw puzzle, isn't it? It will only go one way.
But this is a wake up to the future of this country, because it's moving fast. But we have to make sure that all individuals are included.
Ironically, I stepped away from working on cars because I got tired of oily hands and knuckles and the messy process when it comes to the big extraneous jobs, which is eliminated in working on EVs. So that's another thing that kind of like got my attention. I won't get as dirty.
Even though you're in a cleaning contract.
Even though I'm exactly. I mean, I like clean, so it kind of goes hand in hand.
That's it for us this week. You can find out more about our guests at AmericanBlackJournal.org, and you can connect with us anytime on social media. Take care, and we'll see you next time.
From Delta Faucets to Behr Paint, Masco Corporation is proud to deliver products that enhance the way consumers all over the world experience and enjoy their living spaces. Masco, serving Michigan communities since 1929. Support also provided by the Cynthia and Edsel Ford Fund for Journalism at Detroit Public TV.
The DTE Foundation proudly supports 50 years of American Black Journal in covering African American history, culture, and politics. The DTE Foundation and American Black Journal partners in presenting African American perspectives about our communities and in our world.
Also brought to you by Nissan Foundation and viewers like you. Thank you.